Holy smokes, look at all these faces. This is great. And I'm going to pass it right on over to Gail, who's going to introduce a little bit of the program and herself. I'm going to try to make sure that I spotlight Gail. So this is Gail, everybody. Hi, Gail. Thanks for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you for a few minutes.
All right. Well, you might never get it back, but that's okay. I will try. So my name is Gail Buhl, and currently I am the partnership coordinator for the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota. And so my career with raptors and birds began, of course, a long time ago, but I started at Wolfridge in 2001 with the directive of starting a raptor education program for Wolfridge. And so I was with Wolfridge for about 7 years before I moved back down to the cities to work for the Raptor Center. And one of the things when Joe was talking to me about this, he's like, I'd love you to tell a little story about when you were at Wolfridge and raptors and students and things like that. So I've been thinking really, really hard. And I have so many stories, but I'm limited to one. And this is the one I chose. Is during my tenure at Wolfridge, I trained a Merlin, and Merlins are small falcons. And this bird was blind on one side, so he had no depth perception, so he couldn't be released back to the wild, but he could still fly. And if you've all been up at Wolfridge, one of my favorite spaces is in the Science Center in the big auditorium. Just oodles of space, and it's just nice and open, and you can do all kinds of things with it. Well, I wanted to use the space above the floor toward the ceiling. I wanted to fly this bird and fly for birds class and for our evening raptor programs. And so one of the ways that you train a raptor to fly is a falconry technique using what's called a lure. And so you would have a little leather piece that kind of sort of looks like a bird, and attached to that is a piece of meat. That whole thing is attached to a long string, could be leather, could be cord, whatever. I think mine was leather. And you teach the bird to fly to that and catch it. And so you're swinging it in the air. And so it's kind of a team sport. And once you get the bird knowing that if they catch this lure, they will get a reward for it, it becomes a lot of fun. And Merlins are very fast flyers. They go through the woods, zipping back and forth, trying to chase songbirds and insects and things like that to catch. So I wanted to demonstrate, well, how a little bit of that. So what I would do is I would set up a big circle with tape on the carpet, and the birds class kids would come in. I'd have them sit around the circle. I'd set up the Merlin on the stage, on the tree on the stage, and then I would call the bird to start to fly. And then I would start swinging the lure. And what the bird would do, it was just amazing, is would fly as almost to the ceiling and then do something called a wing over, where they peer over their wing, and they just pause in the air for just a moment, and you can see this, and then come down as fast as they can. And he's trying to catch the lure, but I have him pass me by. So you ended up with a figure 8 going up, wing over, back down again. And I could do it. He would fly over lots of the students' heads. And when I mean fly over the students' heads, I mean like really close to the students' heads. And they had instructions. They had to sit still. They could close their eyes, but they could not try to touch, even if the bird landed right in front of them, which many times the bird did. When I let the bird catch the lure with the food, the bird would take it down to the carpet in this big circle that I had. And during this whole time, I'm talking about Merlins and watch this and see this. And did you notice that? And it was one of my favorite things to do with students, because not only was the bird participating in it and doing something that they do in the wild, but students got a chance to experience something really close We want them to experience all this in the wild, but that's not always possible. And so sometimes catching them with live animals. So now when they do go outside, they're a lot more excited about looking for birds in particular, but animals and animal sign and things like that. So that is one of my favorite stories from Wolf Ridge. Of course, there's many, many more. And I see that Aki is on, and Aki was there when I was at Wolf Ridge, and both her and I have many, many stories about the Raptors and handling the Raptors and teaching so many people that came up to the Ridge. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Danielle, and she's going to show you the main attraction today, which is the Raptors.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Gail. That was an awesome story. I could picture myself in the auditorium with the Merlin flying over me. As Gail said, my name is Danielle. I am a naturalist here at Wolf Ridge, and part of what I get to do is be part of our animal care team. So I'm so excited today to show you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes tour. We do have David as well. He is currently the cameraman, but at some point you'll see his face as well. But first, look at how amazing it is outside. We're being swept with wind in our face. There's snow blowing all over. It is sunny and gorgeous. So we were really excited to just start outside with you all today. We're at the Science Center, which is where our animal program is housed. But first, a little bit of what is our program. So our animal program is where we take wild animals that were injured in some way and they cannot be released out into the wild. So they come in our care. And in our care, our goal is to have them be teachers, just like Gail's story with the Merlin and showing those wild behaviors up close so that when students and people get to meet these animals, they're sparked for all the wild birds that are out there. So you'll probably hear me or David call either one of our raptors an ambassador because they're ambassadors, they're teachers. Another really neat part of our program is that it's also a training program for young professionals who are interested in getting into animal care. So both the birds are teachers, but also the whole process is training people to go on and care for birds or animals or whatever they might go on to do. It works by an animal might go to a place like the Raptor Center and they might be injured or have been hit by a car. They go to the Raptor Center. The Raptor Center repairs them if they can and then looks for homes for them. And Wolf Ridge is one of the places that could be a home. And we have permits, education permits as to how we keep them. And those permits hold us at state and federal levels to make sure that we are caring for our animals in the best way possible. So without further ado, I would really love to show you what that care looks like today and take you on a little behind the scenes tour. So I think we should go inside. Here we are in the Science Center. You see our staff wall over there. We also have our animals up on the staff wall because, like I said, we consider them teachers just like any of us might be here. Come on in. So this is our Raptor room. This is behind the scenes where we keep all of the tools that we need to in order to care for our birds. So David, do you want to give everybody a little 360 view here? Awesome. So as we care for the birds we have, right now we have 2 raptors, and we'll go over a little bit later what does it actually mean to be a raptor, who are the 2 birds that we have, but First, we want to give you a little bit of a view of what it means to care for them. And our goal is we're caring for their physical body, but also their brain, so their mental health, which means that we are making sure they're getting fed the right amounts of food. We are making sure they get some exercise, natural sunlight, get to go on walks with us. Also, they're getting enrichment. So maybe they get their food in a little puzzle so that their brain has to work a little bit and they stay stimulated. In order to do that, we have a lot of tools that help us to do that. One of the things is you might have noticed when David was spinning around, there's various calendars and posters up on the wall because we got to stay organized. There's a lot of details. Every day we record everything that's happening with our animals in this book. So we record their weight, we record how much they ate, if they cast any pellets, which we'll cover what pellets are later too. Everything goes in here so that we're all on the same page and we can notice if anything is off, which might mean that we're going to seek outside advice either from the Raptor Center or a vet to help make sure that we're caring for that animal. Now we also have some tools and equipment that help us care for animals. In a moment, I'm going to bring out our red-tailed hawk, and you'll notice that she has they're called jesses. They'll hang down from her feet, and she's got little bracelets and even a leash. So here's a little replica here. This is not a real bald eagle, obviously, but these here, they dangle down. These are the jesses that I mentioned, and our raptors have equipment on them so that we can actually handle them. And because they cannot be released into the wild, this keeps them with us so that when we do take them on a walk or take them outside, they're staying with us, because if they got out into the wild because they're injured in some way, we know they wouldn't be able to survive. So I am really excited to walk you through our daily care routine for Ruby, our red-tailed hawk. So if you give me a moment, I'm just going to go out and get her real quick. So, as I mentioned, this is a red-tailed hawk. Her name is Ruby. We do give our animals here at Wolf Ridge names because that helps mostly us as staff know who we're talking about. But again, they're not pets, so we don't treat her like a pet. We treat her like a wild animal in human care. So our daily care routine is going to consist of some cleaning. We like to make sure their homes are nice and clean. We are going to weigh her. So the weighing, make sure we know she's getting the amount of food that she needs. And we feed her, of course. So today with Ruby, we're going to weigh her, and we'll also put a little bit of cream on her feet because her feet get a little bit of special care. All right. Nice. Perfect. Step up. Step up. Nice. And if you notice, when I weighed her, and when I asked her to step up again, there's always a little bit of training involved in daily care too, because these animals are trained to be cared for by humans. That helps their life be so much less stressful because they know what's going on, as well as it stimulates their brain. It gives them a form of enrichment. So Ruby was right at her goal weight today, which is perfect. And we'll just make sure to record that. 1196. All right, perfect. Now, Ruby, she is a red-tailed hawk, and red-tailed hawks get that name for their auburn rust-colored feathers, particularly their tails tend to be really rust red color. And they actually live all over, from Alaska down to Central America. They're pretty common birds. I'd be curious, one of you may have seen a red-tailed hawk at some point on a telephone pole or along a highway, because they really like to hang out along roads and hunt there, which means sometimes they can be more prone to injury because they're so close to those cars. So we do want to be mindful about the trash we throw out of our windows and things like that, because that attracts mice, which then attract raptors like Ruby here, or a red-tailed hawk that might be looking for a good lunch. But they also like to hang out on borders of big fields where they can hang out up in the woods or the trees, but they can see a field because they're gonna fly down to hunt what might be in that field. Now, you hear her making a little bit of noises here. That chirping sound is actually an adolescent sound. She's not an adolescent anymore, but sometimes when birds come in human care, they don't always shake all of their adolescent behaviors because they didn't grow up out in the wild and learn to not do that anymore and not need to do that. So Ruby, she came to Wolfridge in 2009. She was injured and sent to the Raptor Center, where they realized her left wing and her left eye were pretty badly injured. Her wing was able to be repaired, however, her eye was not. So Ruby is blind in her left eye. And because raptors, they need their eyesight to hunt. Without one eye, she loses her ability to hunt on her own. So in our care, she can get all the food she needs, and then she gets to serve as that ambassador to all of the students that might visit Wolfridge. Now, Joe, I believe that you have a slideshow with some close-up photos of Ruby and a video to show our audience.
I do, absolutely. And so while you're out doing whatever the next thing is that trainers do, I'm going to share just a little bit. So you can imagine that it would be really awkward to put a camera so close to Ruby right now in that enclosed area. And so we decided, rather than taking the camera that we had and putting it up close, we had pictures that were taken previously in really safe and comfortable conditions. And we wanted to be able to show you up close, this is Ruby. What beautiful eyes, huh? And feathers. Look at those feathers. Oh my goodness. Wow. So this is partly where Ruby lives. Now, Ruby lives in lots of different places, whether that's outdoors, sometimes when it's appropriate, or indoors. And you can see that some people have taken the time to actually paint that mural right in where Ruby lives. And so trying to approximate what it might look like outdoors as well. And I was given this little video here. Let's see if this works. It's a slow motion video of Ruby flying. You can sort of see Ruby up there right at the edge of the white area right there. Maybe you can see my cursor moving back and forth. I'm going to hit play on this and let's see if we can watch Ruby flying. Slow motion right over people's heads. Look at that. Oh my gosh. And you can see the Jesses. Pretty cool, huh? Got to play it twice, I think. Oh, amazing. Good. And so I wanted to share that with you, but now we've got David outside. Let's see. David, I think you're up.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is David Butcher. I'm another Wolfridge naturalist here. And first of all, thanks, Danielle, for sharing all those awesome stories about Ruby. To start off with, as we start to think about looking at another bird and some of the other characteristics they have, you may have been hearing that we've been throwing the word raptor around quite a bit. Raptors are basically a classification or a kind of bird. And the way that we can use that term raptor is there are a few different characteristics that these birds have. First of all, these birds all have talons. They have long toes that are sharp and are designed for grabbing and capturing prey. So anytime you see a bird that has those talons, you can classify it as a raptor. They have really strong feet, talons, and it allows them to grab and hold prey really tightly. Also, a lot of these birds also have sharp pointed beaks. That also makes them a raptor as well. Like we said, these are carnivores, and so that beak is really good for grasping, for ripping, and tearing the meat of the prey that they've captured and hunted. Finally, raptors almost always have eyes on the front of their face. Anytime you see an animal, raptor or otherwise, that has eyes on the front of their face, that tells us that they're a predator. They're designed well for having good depth perception and allows them to reach out to gauge distance of what they're hunting, as opposed to a prey animal that usually has eyes on the side of its head. Gives it a wider range to be able to look around them, but doesn't give them that good depth perception like us humans to be able to gauge that depth if they're hunting or if they're capturing something. Now, these raptors have really cool characteristics, but raptors individually also have some different characteristics as well that give them an advantage when they're hunting. Raptors can include things like hawks, eagles, owls, kites, a lot of other different types of raptors out there. These characteristics then allow them to have a really good advantage based on what they're hunting. For example, with hawks, hawks are usually daytime hunters, which means that their feathers usually aren't designed to be quiet. They're designed to be fast, and they're designed to capture their prey quickly. Owls, on the other hand, are mostly nocturnal. They're usually hunting during the nighttime, and it also means that being quiet is really key to their hunting style and what they have. One demonstration we can have to see this is, I have a couple of pieces of webbing that might demonstrate a little bit of how their wings work. One piece is just straight. It's really similar to a hawk's wing. The other has been roughed up a little bit and is a little bit frilly. This might be similar more to like an owl's wing. Owls' feathers, they're a little bit ruffled, and it allows the air pass to work from there. So let's give it a try. Let's say that a hawk is out hunting and goes down for a dive to catch their prey. And it might be a little noisy, but it's okay. They're moving so fast and going onto their prey that a lot of times their prey don't even see them coming. As opposed to an owl, nice and quiet. They're sneaking up on their prey more than diving down and catching it fast. So a lot of these different adaptations give them a really good advantage in where they live and how they choose to hunt. So with a little bit of that in mind, let's check out our next raptor, who is our raptor named Hunter, who's a great horned owl. I'll go get Hunter ready to go, and then we'll check him out.
And Joe, while David is grabbing Hunter, I believe in that slideshow there are some close-up photos of those adaptations that make raptors raptors. Oh yeah, so there we see a good picture of those forward-facing eyes that David was mentioning that makes them such good hunters. And that's a picture of Ruby where you can really see the curved beak, and that curved beak is what is going to help the raptors eat their food, which is meat. And as we know, meat takes a little bit of effort in order to cut up, just like we might need to use a steak knife or something if we're eating steak. And the last one, yeah, down at the bottom, if you can see it there, mine's a little cut off from the zoom features, but that's an osprey, and look at those talons. Those talons are nice and sharp so that they can catch their prey, be it a fish or a rodent, sometimes even rabbits. They've got to have really, really strong feet. Okay, perfect, Joe. Thank you.
All right, let's welcome our next raptor here. This is Hunter. Like I mentioned before, he's a great horned owl. Hunter is also a raptor, much like Ruby, but owls have much different adaptations based on what hawks might have to allow them to hunt and allow them to live in the habitats that they do. Now, Hunter is a light phase great horned owl. Great horned owls are found all across North America and down south of us as well. This is a light phase, which means that this phase is mostly predominant in northern areas. It allows them to blend in well into gray forests, into winter landscapes, places like that. Hunter is super cool. I'm just going to give you a moment or two just to take a look, see what he looks like, and check out some of the adaptations that he might have that allows him to be so good at what he does out in the wild. So as you may notice, Hunter has all the characteristics of a raptor that we mentioned before. He has talons, which allows him to grasp and hold prey. He has a sharp pointed beak, and he also has eyes on the front of his face, which gives him great depth perception while wild owls might be out hunting. Some really cool adaptations that are specific to owls. Number one, have to do with their eyes. Owls have enormous eyes, and it allows them to bring in a lot of light to be able to see well, especially in low light and dark conditions. Owls' eyes are so large, they actually aren't able to move around in their eye sockets like ours, which is why owls have adapted to be able to turn their heads really far around. It allows them to be able to move their head rather than moving their eyes. You may have heard the myth that owls are able to spin their head all the way around. That is not true, but they do have a pretty amazing range of motion to be able to turn their head and work with that as well. Also, owls have amazing hearing. A lot of times during the wintertime when they're hunting prey, a lot of times they're not actually looking for their prey, they're listening for it under the snow. And so owl ears are designed to be able to bring in a lot of sound. Now, they're not exactly placed exactly where humans' ears are. Our ears are on the sides of our head. Hunter's ears are actually kind of a little bit closer down to where his cheeks are. The cool horns on his head, those are feather tufts, but they're not actually his ears. They're closer down kind of around cheek level for him. Those ears are really well adapted to be able to hear things that are really tiny, like small mammals that are scurrying around underneath the snow level in some of those lower layers, and allows owls to really pinpoint exactly where their prey is so that they can capture it without, a lot of times, prey even really knowing that something's pouncing from above. In addition, owls also, like we mentioned before, they have ruffled feathers, which allows them to be silent flyers as they're making their way and hunting and also flying about. Like we said before, most owls are well adapted to be able to hunt during the day, during the nighttime rather, and it allows them to be able to survive where they live. Now, Hunter's specific story is Hunter came to Wolf Ridge in 2004. He was injured near the Grand Marais area, was rehabilitated back at the Raptor Center, and then came back to us from there to be an ambassador here at Wolf Ridge. Now, Hunter specifically has some damage to both of his eyes with his eyesight, and we think he may have some brain damage as well, which means that he isn't able to hunt for himself and live on his own out in the wild. So here at Wolf Ridge, he's really great at teaching us and showing us all the amazing things that owls are capable of and their place in the habitat where they live. He's looking around and checking things out right now. The last thing we want to share with you is we'll see if Hunter's actually going to be able to eat for us and check that out further from there. Like Danielle mentioned, all of our raptors have a really specific diet that's planned out and is weighed every day, so we're taking good care of them and they can stay healthy and they have that good balanced raptor diet. Today, hopefully, Hunter is going to be dining on some mice, and we'll see if he'll go for it from there. He's looking around right now, but if he's down to eat, we'll see what he'll do. He's interested now. We'll see. He's looking, he's curious. Nice.
Nope, Mrs. Waloski. Stop for a second. I'm right now.
Yeah. Awesome. He wants more, but that's all I got. Amazing. From here, we're going to turn it back over to Joe and see if folks have any questions for either myself or Danielle about the Raptors that you've seen today.
Absolutely. So David and Danielle, as you stay there, I'm going to open it up to any questions that people have. If you can write your questions in the chat, then I can try to keep it all organized, because we have so many people who are with us right now that to try to keep it organized while you're talking would be really hard. So here we go. First question for you. Let's see, where did it go? Do the ear tufts help focus the sound for the owl, David?
That's a great question. The ear tufts are actually just flare. That's really the main function that they have. But Hunter does have some functions on his face that allows to direct the sound a little bit. You'll notice that owls a lot of times have kind of like a bowl-shaped face, or kind of a monkey face almost. That bowl shape actually allows them to direct the sound closer into their ears, like we said, is kind of more at cheek level. So that face shape actually does help them direct sound and helps them to hear better.
Excellent. I'm going to go on to the next question. And as I'm trying to find it, I got to say hi to Max and Ria. So how does it digest the mouse? It didn't eat like I would eat.
Right. Yeah, raptors have beaks. They don't have teeth, so they don't really like chew it up and eat it that way. They swallow their food whole. So once they eat it, they digest it, and it goes two different directions. First of all, it'll go out their digestive tract when they mute, when they make poo. But also a lot of that whole stuff like that, those bones and that type of stuff, that forms up into a pellet that then they regurgitate later on. That's something that we measure and something that we keep track of as well for all of our raptors. And usually they pass anywhere from 0 to 2 pellets a day typically. That's what we're looking for.
Wow. So I think I know the answer to this, but it's a great question. So how many mice do they,
Wind's blowing a little bit.
Yeah. Nice work, David. So how many mice do they eat per day?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on the raptor. It depends on the bird, what their diet looks like. If they're eating mice for that day, Hunter eats anywhere from about 2.5 to 4 mice a day. And right now, Ruby's on a little bit of a bigger diet. We're keeping her weight up. So she eats anywhere from about 3 to 5 mice a day, typically.
Wow.
Ooh, and Danielle actually fished out a couple of pellets that were passed recently. So you can kind of check them out and see what they look like from there.
This is perfect. I just need to bring this up, Danielle, is that the next question in line is all about pellets. Tell us a little.
No way.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, cool. Well, Joe, can you see that? Is the camera focused on the pellet?
Yeah, I can absolutely see it.
Okay, so this is an owl pellet. This is from, I think, yesterday here. And what an owl pellet is I saw some questions coming through the chat about how they digest the mice. And, you know, they don't digest it all. Sometimes they have to spit stuff back up. So that's what the pellets are. They're all the things that the owl or other raptors do not want to digest down in their belly. So if you can see, there's a lot of fur in it. And there's also all the bones. And sometimes when you pick these apart, don't worry, I'll wash my hands after this. You can actually see, can you see that, Joe?
That is so amazing. Absolutely.
What does it look like to you?
Well, it totally is a jawbone of something, something small.
And I can actually tell it's a rodent because of that front tooth there that is sticking through. So probably another day that our raptors got a rat or a mouse while they ate. Were there any other questions about owl pellets?
Well, the one right here, which was interesting, and I'm sorry, I got confused right in there while I was thinking about other things, is how long does it take for an owl to make a pellet?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And I don't know the precise answer, but I can tell you what I've noticed with the animals we care for. We record every time that we pull out a pellet from their home, and we pull out at least 1 or 2 pellets every day. Sometimes there's a day that goes where there's no pellet that comes up, and then there might be 2 the next day. So I would guess around 24 hours.
Hey, Gail, you might know something to add to that. I wonder if you could add in a little piece of information.
Yeah, I can. The larger the owl, the longer span of time it is before they cough up, or it's called casting a pellet. So for a bird like a great horned owl, it's going to be something like anywhere between every 12 hours to every 24 hours. But if you have an owl like a saw-whet owl, which is like the smallest owl we have in Minnesota, they're coughing up or casting a pellet about once every 8 hours. And keep in mind that owls don't digest bones as well as hawks do. So on the inside of an owl pellet will be a lot of the bones of the animals that they ate the day before or 8 hours before. Oh, pellets are cool. Pellets are cool.
Cool. So the last question I think that I'm going to take right now is, so raptors are predators. Do raptors have predators? And I think I might open that to all 3 of you. Do raptors have predators?
Who wants to take that first?
I'm going to defer to Gail on that one.
Throw it to Gail. It depends. It partly depends on how big you are. If you are a small raptor, like a saw-whet owl, like I mentioned earlier, other animals will definitely eat you. So you are a predator, but you're also a prey animal. And so like little screech owls and little saw-whet owls, often during the daytime, will be peeking out of holes in trees, tree cavities, that keeps them safe from behind. And then they can kind of slit their eyes and kind of look at the world and make around them and make sure that they stay safe. Larger raptors generally do not have predators. The only or the biggest danger to all wildlife, but raptors too, are humans. And a lot of times we put obstacles in their way without even thinking about it. So we'll build a road in a place where there was never a road before, or power lines. Windows are a huge problem, even for raptors. They're a big problem for songbirds, but they're a huge problem for raptors too. So that's probably a bigger challenge for raptors, that and surviving. When you are a baby raptor and being taken care of by your mom and dad, that's great. But now when you're on your own a few months later, if you haven't learned your skills very well, you may not make it. And a lot of raptors do not make it to see their very first birthday because it's really tough out there to make it on your own. And you can't go back home to mom and dad for dinner or things like that. So some raptors do have predators, some don't, but there's a lot of challenges that raptors face out there.
Excellent.
You guys want to add anything, Danielle or David?
No,
Nope.
that sounds great.
I said that was the last question, but I have one more. And then after this question, we're going to pass it over to Russ, who is the chair of the Board of Trustees at Wolf Ridge. But before we do that, Russ, the question is, how long are Ruby and Hunter's lifespan? That would be our last question. We have, it looks like 30 more questions after that, but I can't take them all, sorry.
Yeah, at least speaking for Hunter, in the wild, great horned owls typically have a lifespan of about 13 years. Obviously, Hunter's been with us for over 16 at this point, and he's still going strong. So many times raptors have that lifespan within there. But if they're living in an educational role, if they're living in captivity, some birds can live up to be 30 years or older if they're in a setting like this.
And for red-tailed hawks, they can live 20-25 years out in the wild. And again, like David mentioned, in captivity, she might end up living a lot longer. But Ruby came to us in 2009 as a hatch year, which means 1 year old. So that makes her about 12.
Excellent. Thank you so much, you two. I wonder if you could stay there just in case there's anything more. But what I want to do is I want to pass it over to Russ right now. Russ, you had a few words for us. Thanks for being here. What would you like us to know?
First of all, hi to all of you who have signed into this program. It's very rewarding to see so many people join us today. Thank you very much for your past and current and future interest in Wolf Ridge. It was very enlightening to me to listen to Gail, who was there at the beginning of the Raptor program at Wolf Ridge. Thank you very much for joining us, Gail. And I think all of you can see why we think so highly of the staff at Wolf Ridge, as evidenced by Joe, Danielle, and David today. We just have quality people that are teaching our young people who arrive and teaching older people like ourselves who show up from time to time at Wolf Ridge. The two animals were great, Ruby and of course Hunter feeding on cue. Wow, what a beautiful sight that was. And I think the Board of Trustees at Wolf Ridge have been challenged this year, as the staff has, with the pandemic and the absence of students at Wolf Ridge since mid-March of last year. One of the things that came out of this was an awareness, on my part at least, about the cost of these various programs that we have at Wolf Ridge. I've been lucky enough to see the live bird show with students up at Wolf Ridge, and you kind of take things for granted. Oh, the Raptors are going to be here today. Wonderful. And look at all the excitement the kids show by watching the Raptors and interaction and what they're going to remember about Wolf Ridge and the birds. But the birds and the program itself are not free. When we did an analysis of all the cost of programs as we had to scale back our operations, just to service these two Raptors you saw today, it requires well more than $20,000 a year. And I was shocked when I first found that information, but you can imagine there's a lot of labor. We just don't go outside and pick them off a tree and say, here you go, now we'll take you inside for a while. So there's a tremendous amount of love and labor by the staff to keep these Raptors healthy, active, and performing for our students that come up. So I want to have a plea to any of you who feel so inclined to help us defray some of the cost of this program, which has been so valuable over the many years since Gail first started it. And if you feel so inclined, please go on our website, Wolf-Ridge, Wolf-Ridge, I guess, at org. .org, and donate to our Raptors. They need the tender, loving care of our staff, and we want this to continue. And when students come back again, they're going to be able to see the Raptors again. So thank you very much for all of you who have helped us financially in the past, and I hope that all of you consider helping us in the future. Again, thank you so much to Gail and the staff. You guys did a great job today. Thank you.
Yep, I want to thank everybody as well. And that as we end up leaving here, I want to let you know that there are other programs that are going to be happening as well. That in February, unfortunately, I don't remember the exact date right now. Maybe Shal, who's on here, could remind me in the chat of the exact date. But late February, on a Thursday evening, we're going to have a program that spotlights some of the different virtual field trips that we've been doing, things that David and Danielle and I have been doing, and other people at Wolf Ridge. That we have been still teaching, doing our best, and we'd like to be able to share some of the exciting things that we've done. So thank you so much for being here. Hunter, thank you so much for eating lunch with us.